This is happiness, to be everything at once. Be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unburned.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of Mood Prep. My name is Dave Nixon, and today we're going to talk about defining shit in our life. Definition. So more often than not, we give meanings to things. Well, we're meaning makers. We give meanings to events, to smells, to memories, to situations, to people, all the time. We're the meaning makers in our life, and sometimes we think that happens to us just, it happened, and therefore the meaning is that, and I'm at fault. I'm the victim in that situation, and maybe there's truth to that in some circumstance. I think a victim gets a lot of victimization onto it, and sometimes we are victims to things, sure. But my whole point of pointing that out is understanding that we get to choose the definition and the meaning behind events and situations in our life. And one of the things that we are often asked to do, and this was highlighted in a conversation I had with a good friend today, one of the things that sort of we're encouraged to do when looking at goal setting or planning our life or whatever it may be is defining what success is to us. And I think this is important, and I think it takes a bit of time, because sometimes when we initially define success, what we're doing is going in and maybe defining it in something that's outside of our control. Like, let's do a really basic one, like being better than everyone else. It's like, well, that's out of your control. Being number one is out of your control. What's in your control is working your ass off to make sure you leave nothing in the tank. There was no rock unturned in actually going as hard as you could for your target of becoming the best in the world, right? So being the best in the world was like, cool, that's fine, but what is in your control around that? And then let's define success based on those things, rather than hoping the Stephen Bradbury, he still won the race. And if those of you that don't know Stephen Bradbury, look him up. He was like the first Aussie Australian gold medalist in the Winter Olympics, and it's because everyone else slipped over and he just sort of glided on through. But the whole point there is that he won, but he wasn't the best. But he technically was on the day because he gave himself space, he had a plan, and so on and so forth. But he had to rely on other people failing in order for him to win, is my whole point. So defining success is really crucial, and knowing where we're headed is really crucial. Knowing what we're going to get from heading that way is really important, and it helps us stay on track. It's the whole idea of like, I don't want the chicken schnitzel. It's like everyone knows what they fucking don't want, right? But they don't know necessarily what they do want. So defining success allows us to understand and set sails in the way of defining and moving towards the things that we want in our life, or the impact we want to give, who we want to be, and what we want to have, and what we want to do. What we are often neglected to understand is how we define failure. This can be highlighted in so many conversations I've had with people. It's like, I ask them, I'm like, what does failure mean to you? And they're going to give me different response. Everyone gives different responses because more often than not, we have defined failure like subconsciously over time, right? And so what's interesting around that is, if we're not careful, the way that we define it may end up defining us. And what I mean by that is that failure and our definition can keep us in failure. And this is the idea around perfectionists as well, because like I've said in previous podcasts, the perfectionist goals go to the graveyard with them, because the time was never perfect to move towards it. And there is not, if you're a perfectionist, then you're also a liar, because you can't be a perfectionist and be living, because there is not one thing you've done perfect. There is multiple things that you've done to your best ability, and they've been maybe marked by another person, which is subjective to 100%, or maybe there was a objective standpoint that if you got 100 out of 100, then that was a perfect score. Great, but in reality, in the human form, it is not possible to necessarily get it perfect. But that's a whole nother conversation. So understanding the ability to define failure actually teaches us to know whether we're moving, what exactly we're moving away from, right? And I wrote an article. I think it was my first article printed in Men's Muscle and Health magazine. Apparently I got a lisp. Men's Muscle and Health magazine, like I don't know how many years ago, and it was like the 5 tips to fail-proof your mindset, something like that. One of them was to change the rules so you can win, and that's really coming down to, understanding that a lot of the time we set rules up against us, right? And we give ourselves rules that we don't want to abide by, and we end up being like the fucking worst boss and the worst employee to ourselves, and so we end up doing nothing and then get shitty at ourselves. It's like, you got to change your rules. You got to actually choose your rules, right? Some of the rules you're running right now that you created when you were fucking 14 trying to study for a year 10 HSC or whatever it was, like a study for a certification for year 10, that just doesn't apply today now that you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s or 50s. So we need to update our map. That's really crucial. So change the rules. One of the other ones I spoke about was actually understanding and defining failure, right? Because this is what I had to do, and I share this with you because this is something that I decided on. I looked at failure, and it doesn't mean I didn't have my struggles with it post defining it. I did for sure. There was deeper things at play than simply changing the definition, but that's an individual basis thing. I can't fucking give you a perfect answer on that. But what I did decide to do was define failure differently. So when do I fail was the question, right? That's what I changed about my definition. When do I fail? What does it mean? Well, I fail when I give up. That's it. That's the only way I can fail. And what that meant is that I was able to stuff up, mess up. Like, you can probably see that in a lot of my podcasts. I say the wrong words. I fumble words. I edit sometimes, but like maybe 1 in 15, I'll edit slightly a little bit because someone knocks at the door or something. Otherwise, I'm happy to fumble and have mistakes and do that sort of stuff because that's not a failure to me. I changed the definition. It means I had to give up, and then that's me failing. And when I did that, it enabled me, it gave me permission to always do things that I knew I could do, in the sense at least I knew I could start. And it also, what was interesting, it kind of stopped me in the tracks. It's like, if I can't do that consistently, is it worth doing at all? And it made me really question that. And if you have a look at the content I've produced over a long period of time, some of you only just listen to me now, but some of you guys maybe have known me for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. Like, I was writing blogs 6 years ago, 5 years ago, right? No one was reading them, so to speak. And I did a year worth of video, simply press record and talk to a video for a year, post it, doesn't matter. And the whole thing about that, it taught me just to learn how to be human and understand that we have mistakes and that mistakes aren't failures. And what I also had to truly understand, what I really encourage you to look at, is that you can't be a failure because you cannot be an event. An event does not define your life. What can define your life is you let that definition of that event become who you think you are. This is why it's difficult when we become a victim to something, because our identity changes. It becomes 3 Ps. Ready? Permanent, pervasive, and personal. And people do this with all sorts of things, and it's really crucial for us to really be able to understand that when we make something personal, it happened to me, and things do happen to us, sure, there's more to it than that. When we make it pervasive, which means it's associated with everything in my life now, everyone judges me everywhere I go, whatever it may be, and we make it permanent. This always happens, right? We look at that and you go, now it's a part of your identity. You will look for it and you will subconsciously make it come forward into your life. You'll justify it. It's interesting. But when we have the power to turn it around and understand that happened there then, that doesn't define who I am now. So when we change from the 3 Ps, personal, pervasive, and permanent, to that there then, we take our identity back and we're able to be who we are in this current moment, rather than trying to be a reflection of who we used to be at a moment that we decided upon in the past. And that's the beauty of it. So team, define failure. Don't let failure define you. Big fucking difference. I'm out. Thank you very much for tuning in yet again. If you haven't already, it would mean the world to me if you would pass this on to somebody that you think would also find it beneficial. That's if you found it beneficial. I really appreciate you guys downloading. It means a lot. Otherwise, check out Mood Prep online. You'll find it at davenixon.com.au/memberships. I've got a couple of seminars coming up for the end of this year as well. They're both in Canberra. One's called Connected Coaching. It's a 1-day seminar here in Canberra out of my friend's gym, Burley Strength. The other one is the 3-day intensive with me at my gym in Functional Fitness Australia in Canberra as well, where we get to pull apart all of the amazing learnings for 3 days. Brain gains galore. Otherwise, team, if you haven't already and you're a PT, you're a coach or an athlete, check out the Coaches Circle. Let's chat. I'd love to meet you, have a chat, and see if that would be a right fit for you in relation to a mentoring program and an educational program. Otherwise, I'm done. As always, peace and pizza, kick today in the dick, slay the dragon. I'll see you guys soon.
to be everything at once. Be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unlearned.